Hi, my name's Cassie and I'm one of the testers here at Sweet Pea. Today I want to give you some essential tips on how to create a backing for your in the hoop designs. Here at Sweet Pea there are two methods in which we actually finish off our products. There is the one where we finish off our projects once they've left the hoop. We want to put a backing on like that, or there are our smaller projects which are completed within the hoop. I just wanted to go through some essentials that we use here at Sweet Pea when we are cutting our backing for our projects. So the first one is an ironing mat or an ironing board. That's really important. You want to have a flat surface to actually use. A self-healing cutting mat. We have a sharp rotary cutter and blade, and then your quintessential ruler or a long ruler in which you can actually measure your products completely. And it's also really important to have a steady flat surface when you're cutting your fabrics. So when you're actually cutting your backing fabric, have a large piece of fabric that you're wanting ready. First thing I usually do is I measure my sample. So this is just a small sample that we've got that is not complete yet. So what you do is you measure through the center because that is the most central number that you need. And then on both sides. Now it depends on what type of backing you're actually doing. So if you were to do a backing binding, you would need to leave an extra 1.5 inches, and then you'd be cutting that back a little bit more once you've actually stitched in the ditch. But if you're doing just a backing, then you can cut it to size. So you'd use your cutting surface to lay it out. So firstly, you would actually iron your piece of fabric because you want it to be as stretched as it possibly can so that when you actually stitch it in the ditch, nothing's going to shrink or anything like that. So let's go and iron it. So we've got our piece of backing here. Give it a quick press. This is 100% cotton, so it's going to keep its structure, but what you can also do is use a starch spray, and that'll also help all of the fibers stay in place. Right, let's go. So now that we've ironed our piece of backing, there are two methods that you can use to actually connect your backing fabric with your product. You can either use a 505 spray, just a temporary spray, before you do your stitch in the ditch, or you can use some safety pins to kind of place in between each of them to keep them together so that everything's still staying in the same place once you do your stitching in the ditch. Today's just about showing you some tips and tricks about how to do backing on our projects, but we do actually have some full tutorials on projects and we'll show you some links below. We're going to go into the workroom now and I'll show you on a larger surface how we cut our backing. Before we go out into the workroom, I just wanted to share some tips on how to avoid fraying of your fabric while you're cutting. So the first one is really important. You want to have a sharp rotary cutter. So we're just going to change that one now. Sweet Pea has our own range of rotary blades and they're amazing. Stay very sharp and they're kept in a little pack of 5. Before you actually put your backing onto your product, you want to work out where the stretch is and where the strength is. So the stretch goes landscape along your project and the strength goes portrait. Now we're going to put them wrong sides together, leaving plenty of room along the outside. Another essential tip is to have a steady flat surface. The next step is actually working out what type of backing you want. You can do a back binding. As I mentioned before, you need to leave 1.5 inches on each side of your backings and your product to actually give you enough fabric. Or if you're just doing a plain backing, you cut to the exact same size as your product. When I'm doing my quilts, I like to use the 505 and we want to put it on our product, kind of like a book. So you want to do half the product with spray base, then you move to the other side. So that actually prevents your hills and valleys within the backing of your fabric. So if you decide you don't want to use your 505 adhesive spray, you can actually pin each of your blocks. So I usually just choose the middle of the block and that keeps it all steady. And you can repeat that all the way through the quilt if you'd like. And that actually helps you when you're cutting your actual product. So then you can cut along the edge. A tip when you're cutting your backing is to make sure you have a steady hand on your ruler so that nothing's moving. I'm just going to finish cutting around our backing. Making sure to keep all your edges straight and not cut any of your quilts.